Good morning. Can we have a check that we are really live? It should be live now. Good morning, Mitchell, Vincent.
Morning. Yes, we're here.
All right. Thanks, Vincent. And can you hear me and Wouter as well? Because this is our first time doing it with this hardware, so we are going to need some checkups. Is the audio clear and the visual also?
Morning, Roland.
And some. Perfect. Thanks,
Thanks.
Vincent. You're the legend of
Nice.
today.
Let's go.
Welcome. Where's everybody joining from? From net, I see some Dutch names, familiar names, British names. Cool. Thanks for joining. And today it's the first edition of Fast and Curious.
Oh, is it the first edition? Are we
Yes.
doing more?
Yeah,
Is this going to be a series?
Yeah, I was thinking of a name for the webinar, and then I asked ChatGPT, obviously, and it said Fast and Curious. So I also made it a little bit Fast and Furious themed,
Nice.
as in font style, colors, cars, whatsoever. So today I'm with Wouter, and maybe we should introduce ourselves real quick, and you can start.
Yeah, I'm Wouter Steenmeijer, co-owner of Elgentos, e-commerce and configurator agency from Groningen in the Netherlands. Mostly I'm doing financial stuff in the organization, but also still doing some coding. And my focus is on the front end of the e-commerce shops we run. So that's why I'm here.
Nice, thanks. Meanwhile, people chatted their location: Liverpool, Krakow, Bulgaria, Frankfurt, Ukraine, another Krakow, Krakow, not sure, and Bucharest. But thanks for the intro. And I'm Jordi Scholing from Rum Vision, mostly focused on the customer success, marketing, obviously, consulting, also co-owner of the company. Carlijn is also in the chat. She's my colleague at Rum Vision. And today we are going to present a few slides, because we said in the newsletter that it would only be a few slides. And then Wouter is going to try and probably succeed in making a website faster. We've created a horrible website in terms of speed and common mistakes we both experience in the field. So I think I'm going to screen share.
First of all, Jordi, how is it going with you?
Yeah, good.
Yeah?
I was actually a little bit sick this week.
Yeah, me
but
too.
So are you.
Yeah.
I think we are not the only ones.
Still recovering.
Yeah, but I took 2 days rest yesterday and the day before, so I would be fit today and tomorrow. There's also an event in Arnhem with another partner of ours, Hypernote. So I would have, I needed to be fit for those days.
Yeah.
And you are still recovering as well?
Yeah, I'm fine, but it's always when you miss a few days of work, then you have the feeling that you missed a lot, and then you feel like I have to catch up a lot of work. So
Yep. And then you also have a webinar
the
whole morning, so no work for you as well.
Well, this is part of work, right?
Sure. So if there are questions during the webinar, I probably will answer them directly with Wouter. If it's a more deep question or off-topic questions are also welcome, but we will do them when we are done. And obviously they need to be Magento, web performance, Groningen related.
We will try to answer all Groningen related questions right away.
Yeah. So right now I can move to another setting. So let me test this out. Show on stage. And Eierbal Croquette. Eierbal
for sure.
Okay. I've given Wouter the screen and obviously a beautiful visual of the Fast and Curious themed webinar. So this is the Fast and Furious font as well, which is free to use. So I'm not doing anything illegal.
Nice. I did not know that. It's a nice font. Hey,
Oh,
here we
handsome
are.
voice, according
here
to
we are.
Roland.
Yeah. It's a man with taste, Roland, I guess.
Yep, unless he picks croquette over well. But yeah, this is us. But we've already introduced ourselves. But yeah, those are our professional pictures. Although mine is not really professional. I need to
No.
make a new one as well. But
When are you going to make headshots with the company? So maybe a good idea.
I've offered this idea, but they're not a fan of the
No?
idea.
Okay.
But I will make my personal headshot soon.
Okay.
So yeah, a few slides, trust me, and then we move to the fun stuff. But it needs some context.
Yeah.
But yeah, today we are focusing on making a website fast. Obviously, it's just a demo and a lot of shits and giggles in between. But in the end, it are familiar scenarios that you might face in the wild. So yeah, the main things I would do when I make a website fast is focusing on the fundamentals. Let's say time to first byte, deciding architecture before you're going to build anything, like just the basics. Maybe Wouter has some fundamentals you do with every project. What would you say are the fundamentals for a fast website?
Keep it lean and mean.
Wow, one-liner. Keep it mean and lean. Best practices. Yeah, you would be surprised of how many websites I see in the world that are newly built, like let's say at least in the last year, that are not following best practices still. So the most silly example is lazy loading below the fold. You've heard this probably a trillion times, but it's surprising how often I come across websites that are also loading images above the fold. For example, yeah, a hero image on a homepage or a first image of a product detail page.
Lazy loading above the fold.
Below the fold is good.
Yeah, okay.
And then I see a lot of lazy loading above the fold. So yeah. Also, a common mistake is using JavaScript libraries for everything. For example, lazy sizes back in the days, or we had a discussion before the webinar.
Before the webinar. Sticky JS. It was a tool to make a header sticky. And yeah, it was a very small library and it worked pretty well. Only it's not necessary anymore because of the constantly evolving of HTML and CSS spec.
Yeah, it was introduced 10 years ago, although the
No,
NPM
it was
longer than
NPM
that.
said it was 9 years ago, but it is way older than that.
Yeah, and last updated 5 years ago, so that illustrates. Yeah, you can do it with native HTML.
What also is a good example is the dialog.
Pop-ups.
For pop-ups, yeah. That's now native in the HTML spec, and before you had to jump to a lot of hoops to do that. What's the library called again? Model.js or something? I think we used back in the day.
Yeah, there are a lot of ones, I would say. Just like for lazy loading, there's like 10 different libraries. Yeah. Maybe someone in the chat knows. Yeah. Pop-up JavaScript library.
Model.js, I think.
Model.js.
Oh man.
That was disgusting. Another thing is to not rush things. Like, this is easier said than done because there's always management breathing in your neck to make sure you're finishing stuff faster. But if you overrush it now, you are going to spend twice as much time in the future than you would be now. Tools that work for you and others in your team. This is underrated, but let's say you are a performance-minded developer in a team of less performance-minded developers. You should make sure your team also can work with the same tools as you are. So collabing more and making sure you are using the same tool set to achieve a good result. One question, do you have any insight in how bad lazy sizes impacts perf? We could check that. I don't have the numbers out of my head, but it could impact some IMPs, like it could be a long animation frame during an IMP, but not sure. But yeah, I'm not sure when you would still use it over native HTML lazy loading. And last of this slide is work with performance-minded companies and people like us.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Next slide, maybe, or you have something to add for this slide?
Yeah, I think this list can be endless. But
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, here we actually had the fundamentals. Maybe you can cover this one from a tech point of view.
Yeah, a site starts with good hosting, and look at where your visitors are. Are they only in the Netherlands, or only in Europe, or worldwide? Do we have to distribute our document cache to the world, or not? All sorts of questions you have to ask yourself before setting that up. Obviously, front-end code and back-end code. You need when you need a fast time to first byte. So that means also uncached with good back-end code. That is fast enough.
Yep, I agree with that. Like the uncached timed first bytes should also be below 1.3 seconds or something like that. Maybe ideally even faster, but sometimes you have to do some compromises. But cache hit ratio obviously is very important. Picking fonts wisely. So there are a lot of font techniques, and there's a whole presentation about this done during Performance Now last year, which is great. I will share it in the mail I sent afterwards. But the subsetting fonts, best practice would be to use WOF2 instead of TTF. Check a site in your mind, and they might be running TTF at the moment. And obviously, monitoring is fundamental. So if you change something or optimize code, you want to see if it actually had an impact on the performance of the site. And you cannot guess this with a good feeling. You need data to back this up. Another one would be to use, again, not use libraries for every silly thing that pops up in your head. And Jake Mitchell says jQuery is used a lot. Unfortunately, yes. Although jQuery itself isn't bad, but I would say the way it's used is bad, which is pretty much the same, applies for everything. But jQuery, I'm not I'm not a developer, but would you agree that jQuery is often being used in a wrong way?
I didn't touch jQuery in like 8 years, so I honestly don't know anymore.
No, well, maybe someone in the chat is a professional jQuery user. What's your thoughts on the way it's being used? Are a lot of people misusing it, or should we move to another library? Obviously, with Magento, you have Huva, which is got rid of jQuery as one of their USPs in the early days, I would say.
Since Huva, we did not touch jQuery anymore. So when was Huva started? Is it not?
It's not years ago or something.
Yeah,
a little bit longer than us. Although, when there are 5 jQueries, it gets really. That's also true. Some third parties also import their own version.
Yeah, that's also fun.
That's disgusting. And indeed, Mitchell, what you're saying is right. If you're using Magento 2, you are tied to jQuery mostly, I would say, unless using Hiva. If so, you just need to optimize a lot of jQuery and again, use browser features wherever possible.
Yeah. All right. Next one.
Yeah. This one's for you.
Using the web. We discussed it briefly before, but there are a lot of newer features in the HTML spec and the CSS spec. Also native JavaScript, obviously, that you can use nowadays. For instance, the native form validation, which is default in Hiva. And the patterns you can select as an attribute to select a good keyboard for telephone numbers and email and stuff like that. It helps a lot.
For UX.
For UX without any cost because it's in the browser. I think you have to be up to date on that knowledge as a developer and implement that where you can.
Yeah, something nice that might be worth noticing is Baseline. It's a project by major web browsers, and this is your Baseline 2024, 2025, etc. And then it includes web features of a specific year. So Baseline 2025 has some new features introduced over the last month. Those are really new and might not be ready to use yet, but next year your website might have enough visitors on newer browser versions where you could use the web features that are released today. So a feature that is released today might not be compatible yet, but just put it somewhere in the backlog or write it down to keep an eye on this feature. And if you're using RunVision, you have the Baseline module in the sidebar, so you can see which web feature is supported for X amount of visitors.
What's the site called?
It's the Baseline. I would say Baseline Google. If you put Google behind it, it probably that's the project. So a Baseline, it's pretty much sort of a can I use, but a lot of more browser collaborative.
Okay.
So it's really interesting. I would say keep an eye on Baseline. Because it's also every month there are new features. Maybe see it as sort of a newsletter, right? So every month there's a new article in Baseline. Check the new features, see if it's useful, and then go on with your life.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Can I use also?
This is what I always use.
Yeah. But the thing with this one is, it's a good one to use, but okay, let's say dialog element is supported as of, what is it? Chrome.
No Internet Explorer support. That's unfortunate.
Boo. Yeah, so for example, Edge dialog is supported for a long time, but let's say it's a new feature, and it says it's supported as of Chrome 142 to 144.
Yes.
But how many people are on this browser version?
Oh, you can see on the site you are developing for. You cannot see that indeed, but you can see the in this. You can see the global usage.
Yeah.
So, for instance, this Chrome 37 to 140 is 26%. That's weirdly high, but I don't know.
Maybe the numbers are messed up.
Okay.
Wait.
I don't understand that.
But yeah, just pretty much cross-check a feature with a browser and maybe see if your user on this browser version.
So you can use Baseline as a newsletter and then check your feature you want to use. That is a pretty new feature, and see if that is supported. For instance, a container
grid. Also not Internet Explorer.
No Internet, obviously. But you can use that this natively now. So that's cool.
That would sum it up pretty much. And I think there is one last slide.
Yeah, sorry about
no.
distraction there.
I liked it. Can go to the next one, then we should.
Sorry. The I think the dialog element. This is also with the native JavaScript implementation for that. So that's also nice to use. You can use that within any other JavaScript.
Are you using it in a project already?
Honestly, I don't know.
Okay. Homework.
I'll check it.
Maybe someone else is. Can you share an URL where you're using dialog?
One of my colleagues is here. Maybe
I think Wolsey.com might be using it. So I've check it out. Last slide.
Yeah. Okay.
I think tools. Little bit commercially.
So, what is a good front-end monitoring tool? Can you think of one?
RunVision. So use RunVision. a lot of people in the chat are using Room Vision already. And a tool that was fairly new to me, but it's Tideways. The owner is a great guy, Benjamin. They have a great team. They are insanely good at backend monitoring. So the holy grail for me would be to use Room Vision for front end, Tideways for backend. Tideways is, for me, a better alternative for New Relic. And that is, because I'm a backend noob, and Tideways makes it a little bit easier for me.
Yeah, and what I feel like in Tideways is that it's so snappy and responsive. And every time I'm in a New Relic or in what's the other tool again? Blackfire. It's the big bloaty single page apps that are slow and annoying, and you're constantly looking at a spinner, and it's just annoying. And Tideways is all pages are loading Insta, so it's pretty awesome to use.
Smart guys.
Fun to use.
DevTools is obviously also a tool which we are going to look at later, and AI. I would say I'm not going to say anything about AI, but everybody has their own use of AI. If it works for you, you're using it well, right?
So we almost had a webinar without the word AI.
Yeah,
but it's still in it.
But that's all AI for today. Although, it would be. Oh, Sean is saying that the dialogue HTML thingy is also being included in Hiva UI soon.
Ah, nice.
Which
for which element then? What was a good example for the add to cart pop-up or maybe
if you can let them know, Sean. And also Fiara is saying we are also using web page test. That's what should have added that to my list as well. That's for me the best synthetic tool that's out there. I think they are last week they embedded it to their Catchpoint suite, so it's not easy to use anymore. Although I might be wrong, I have to check this out. But if you can let this know, Sean, then Wouter can check this up. That's ideal about screen share. Okay.
Right.
It's .org.
Oh.
Who does that, right? .org.
Okay,
it's
still working.
Wait, it still works. Although you are behind a lot of pending tests.
Okay.
I mean, Theme UI already has it. Okay, now. Good stuff. For now, I'm going to go to stage real quick so Wouter can open the website.
Let's debug.
Go to answer Mitchell real quick. Not entirely related to web performance, but using semantic HTML element like dialog details and summary, for example, is also beneficial when it comes to accessibility.
Yes, and SEO.
Because that's a nice one, Mitchell.
Yeah, nice.
Nothing to add there.
That's very much true. All right, Acme Corp. Acme Corp is the best in worst front-end performance.
Yep. Thanks to Wouter and AI.
Yeah, sure. Damn it, I'm mentioning AI again.
Yeah. So what we did, although I have to give Wouter credits, he made a website horribly slow with different kind of pages, and each page has its own issue. So we're going to focus on each issue we see around a lot, come up with a solution, fix it on the go. It is a live session, and a lot of people are familiar with the demo effect. So
live
demoing. So just laugh. That's fine.
We will do that.
We will try our best, and it should be good. So show us what you got, Wouter.
Yeah. Okay. First, let me share this link, so everyone can laugh at this site for themselves.
Bad core vitals.
Okay. Shall we start at this page?
Yeah, the width and height, the classic.
What did you see? Did you already see what happens here? If I refresh, can you see that on the screen or not? Yeah, you can see it, right?
A little flickery, but you see some
text behind the blue on the top sometimes.
Yeah, like
Okay.
unstyled text. Yeah, if
Okay.
you slow it down to fast 4G or something.
Yeah, let's do that. Uh, so this one
Responsive, smart.
a little smaller.
Our company logo is in the way, but there was no way of hiding it on the screen, so deal with it. All right. The perfect DevTools setup is done.
Yeah, done.
Nice.
All right. The first thing I always do is go to the inspect element. What is it? F
Yeah.
L11 or something like that.
Yeah. I don't even use that shortcut. Just right click.
Right click, inspect.
Yeah.
That's what I do, and then I go to the performance tab. That is pretty new, right?
Yeah. I think yeah, for me it's not new, but for a lot of people it is. It was also my topic at
Yeah,
Mage Titans.
I think it's about half a year or so that,
Yeah,
that this
something like that.
this overview is added. And
Yeah.
here you can already see the biggest problems within a page regarding to the LCP, the CLS, and IMP. And those topics we're going to cover today, at least. Yeah, when I reload the page, sorry, then you already see that there is a very big layout shift here. It's 0.46, that is very high.
Yep.
And you can click on the worst cluster, and then you see what is the what's causing that. And in this case, it's this. But you see here, it's only 0.0082. So this is not it.
Marginal.
This is not the problem. The problem is this. So that's this image. Okay, that is a little bit weird because it seems pretty instant. So why is that so? Why is that so bad? Okay, then we're going to the network tab. And this is also a fun thing because here in the Netherlands, our internet is always very fast.
Yeah.
We always have 5G. Our hosting is almost next to the door. So we're in the perfect spot. We're not a good real life example of a visitor on the page. So you have to do some, you have to set some settings to mock that scenario. For instance, let's exaggerate a little bit and go to 3G and see what happens if we load this page.
For me, 3G is even too slow sometimes. Although
you can see it pretty good, right?
Yeah. Horrible. But
It's,
you didn't see it with Wi-Fi connection, right? So it's still there, but not for us. Although it is there, but
it's too snappy.
Yeah.
So as a developer, and you create that page on your local environment, you think, oh, done. It's pretty. We succeeded. It works. However, for us, it works. But there's still layout shift, so it's not good enough.
Yeah, and this is coming to the solution. You would say then, what would be a good solution right here? I'm not sure what you did with the code. I'm assuming no width and height. Yeah, okay. So the text is there.
I don't know. I don't know anymore. Let's find out.
Okay.
We're
nerding now, boys.
This is my PHP storm, and now I'm going to the right page, width and height. Yeah, okay. The sun. Let's check.
The sun was shining on my face. We don't like that. Okay. Placeholder.
Okay. I see two things here.
Mm-hmm. That is also baseline, what you saw over there, by the way, that little pop-up. Did you know that?
What?
When you hovered over something, there was this little pop-up. Yeah, see? Widely available across major browsers. So that is
okay.
also baseline embedded in PHP Storm. So you can already see there if you're using.
I didn't know that. Cool. Awesome. Okay. Well, this is the first image. It's premium wireless headphones. Premium wireless headphones. When I look at this code, I see no width and height. So we have to add that. And I see in this image is 400 by 600. So I will do this. Oh, it's okay.
Nice.
Okay.
Bang.
And now I see another issue.
Uh-oh.
Oh, now we can go back to. Oh no, this is live. This is not working here, obviously. So. Oh. So.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay. So now there was.
So that was the fix for one image, but it fixed the whole row.
Yeah.
But it's obviously not the way to go. And here we have the image, the rows just in code. That's also normally is that dynamic. So we have to add that here as well.
Yeah, check. So you're now using width and height elements, but in chat someone is saying there's two things to do: set a width and height, or set the aspect ratio. Mitchell and Philip, mentioned this. If you're setting an aspect ratio, you need to make sure that the styling is loaded before the elements are being loaded. That is a good one. And the good thing is that CSS is render blocking by default. But if you have the aspect ratio in a CSS file or inline, so not render blocking, this might be an issue. But if you're coding good and with some logic in mind, I would say the aspect ratio would be also a good solution. And Wouter did some things in the meantime.
Yeah, I like the aspect ratio, but since that is CSS, I always feel like that the to do it just directly on the element is a little bit more clear to what needs to be done there. Otherwise, you have two places where you control two things.
Fair. So I wouldn't say there's a good and wrong, but I would say it's just a preference, personal preference.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Sana is asking also a good question, and I think we're coming to that.
Yeah.
She's seeing loading is lazy. Yeah. Sharp cheddar.
Sharp.
So yeah, why does it have a lazy loading, and how do you check if it's above the fold on different resolutions? Steady question, as in it should not have a lazy loading because it is above the fold. I'm not sure how this page would look on mobile device. I would say you are only seeing one product card above the fold.
Honestly, I don't know how this page looks on mobile.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's not do that.
Desktop first.
It's desktop first development.
Yeah, but how would you answer this one? Like on desktop, you're now seeing 3 images and 3 previews of images a little bit. So I would not lazy load the first 3 images.
No, these needs to be the first 3 needs to be not lazy loaded.
Yeah. And because you're seeing just a tiny bit of the second row, I would in this case say you could lazy load the second row. But if you're seeing like more of the second row of images, I would say don't lazy load it. And when the image proportions are different on mobile and desktop, that's also something I wonder. How do you do this?
That's a good argument. Yeah.
So I would say focus on mobile first. Right?
But the projects I work with are they're pretty focused on their photography, Yeah. So there always are have the high quality there, and I don't think we have that. That is different on mobile than on
No.
desktop. But yeah, that's a good argument to do
Yeah.
that.
I should write a blog about that, Sanne, because I've had this question multiple times and I also always answer it a little bit different. 2 questions and then we continue. Otherwise, we are running out of time. I think the aspect ratio really makes sense when the image proportions are different on mobile and desktop.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
Mitchell, with aspect ratio, you can set a different value with breakpoints. That is
Yeah.
also correct.
That's
So
a nice argument. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, true. Yeah, true.
Yeah, I can agree with that. That's
Yeah.
a nice one. Okay, that was first row.
This is how I would have it in an ideal world. So
So
no CLS anymore. Only a high LCP, but that is because of network throttling. Something that we might want to add here, Wouter, is you removed the lazy loading now, right?
yeah, and we can do another thing.
Exactly. Let's go.
So I'm going for this attribute.
Bang.
First word.
High.
High. So let's copy paste that.
So I always describe fetch priority as the opposite of lazy loading. So instead of telling the browser it's not important, you're telling it's really important. So you could do this to the first row of images.
Yeah, I did it.
And that
you see how fast the first 3 are, and that the other images are much later loaded.
Yeah, so this would be for a category page on an e-commerce store. This would be my approach. So making sure that everything is loading in a normal way, prioritizing important images. So the first row of images, width and height or aspect ratio. Then from a UX point of view, there's a lot under the hood happening, but from a front end dev point of view, this would be your ideal scenario.
Nice. Do you approve? Then we go to the next one.
Chatters approve.
Okay, nice. Let's go to the render blocking CSS. Next time, I'm not going to spoil the problem.
Oh, fine. Does everybody know that CSS is render blocking by default? Because if you do a web page test run, you always see those little crosses in front of the CSS files. And the reason that is because if CSS is not render blocking and the page would already render without CSS, you would have a flash of unstyled content, text whatsoever. So CSS is render blocking by default. And this is a good browser behavior, but it can also be bad if you have one big CSS file. So if you have, one CSS file for your complete site, like a styles.css that is for product detail, category, home, checkout, etc., then you are blocking every page for longer than it's necessary because it's render blocking also the CSS that's not used for this page. So my approach is often to do template-specific CSS and the CSS that is not necessary for styling. You can give this a media is print attribute. Did you know that? That's a dirty little trick.
Yeah, that's a nice hack.
Yeah, so media is print, then the CSS file is not render blocking anymore. So that is a fun one. So that's a little bit of context for render blocking CSS. So Wouter, what have you done to fuck this up?
Yeah, is it? I don't know if it's very good visible, but when you refresh this page, it takes forever to load.
You can see this in the network panel. You can see the CSS is already there.
So do it one more.
One more time.
One more.
CSS is there.
Delay. Yes, it's there.
Yeah.
That's because we include a CSS file. And that file took 3 seconds to download because it's 8 MB, or something like that. And then you have a very slow site. And let's search for that problem.
Yeah.
Random blocking CSS. Okay. Now here is the head, meta tags, and here a link to a style sheet that is loaded. And we identified here in the browser, in the network tab, that this is the file that is not loading very well. And when we look at the contents, it's only having one line, so it does not do anything. So we can just remove it.
Yeah. So this is really a demo thingy, but the point here is if you having one big CSS file that's render blocking, really consider splitting it up, because as Sean said, it's negative for largest contentful paint.
Yeah.
So only images can be painted when this LCP is done. But even more harmful might be the first contentful paint. So when the page is not white anymore. So if you're loading a product detail page and you're seeing heading 1 tag or the product title, it's giving an indication that the page is loading. That is already good for UX. That the image is a little bit later is also negative. Yeah. But FCP would be the main metric I would be focused on right here.
And here is the problem, that it's that this file is loaded from a CDN, and that CDN is very slow. So that can be a problem, or that your customers are in New Zealand and your hosting is in Iceland or something like that. Nightmare. So that's something you have to solve. And obviously, I don't think that just deleting the file is solving anything, but there are other things needs to be fixed to fix the actual problem here.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is in HTTP archive, you can also see a trend line in bundle sizes, or the sizes of CSS and JavaScript is always increasing. Every year it's going up and up and up. So we as developers are also getting away with more code because devices and browsers get better. But we should still be cautious about how much CSS and JavaScript we add to pages.
Yeah.
So that's the nightmare of render blocking CSS. And Sean, good one. Render blocking is not a bad thing for CSS if the CSS is built correctly. I agree.
Exactly.
It needs to be render blocking because you don't want to see unstyled content, but only make the part that is, or the CSS that's used for the site render blocking, and not every other CSS line. Is there still a reason case where it would actually be beneficial to have one CSS file instead of split CSS? If your site is running HTTP 1.
One CSS file instead of split. You mean split CSS per page, or within one page?
Yeah, so probably split CSS per template, per component, maybe even. Yeah. That's
okay. Yeah. With Tailwind, a good implemented Tailwind version, you get a CSS file of like 25 KB.
Yeah.
I think that's very fair, and that's something that's manageable.
Yep.
But I've also seen Tailwind projects where the CSS file is 500 KB. Well, that is not acceptable.
That's even impressive. It
That
would be more difficult to have a 500 kilobyte Tailwind than a 20 kilobyte.
Yes, that's true, but it happens.
Alrighty, with time in mind.
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
IMP.
I always like IMP.
Yes, it's a technical metric that has a technical solutions oftentimes.
When I was making this page, I also learned a little bit about the IMP metric.
Don't say it. It's a hacky thing.
Okay. What is exactly the IMP? Can you explain that?
It's a I'm going to explain it like really simple. Interaction to next pane. So it's literally when you interact with something on the browser, how long does it take for the next pane, so visual feedback, to happen? There's a trillion edge cases with IMP, but essentially it's like visual response to the user's interaction. So there's a lot of things happening under the hood when you interact with an element. So event listeners, maybe some Hotjar or whatsoever is running on the, or Hotjar. Yeah, Hotjar maybe is running on the background, following your cursor, tracking your clicking behavior. All of this can make an impact on how fast this visual feedback is. So what you want to do is assure that the visual response is happening as soon as possible. So that's a TLDR of the interaction to next paint. It deserves its whole webinar by itself. But I think Wouter can illustrate a bad IMP by showing his demo.
Yeah, when I feel like this, or I see in Run Vision that there are pages within the project that has a bad IMP, then I get an alert from Run Vision, and then I go to the site, to the project, open the DevTools, go to the Performance tab, and there I'm going to search for the element which has a bad IMP. In this case, it's this accordion, and that is something we see we've seen multiple times, that these let's call it simple elements are causing a bad IMP. Well, let's click on this one and see what happens.
Damn.
Okay. Well, you see in the performance tab that there is actually a bad IMP here of 360 milliseconds. Well, that is insane for a simple click.
Literally an accordion that should be dropping down.
That should not be the case here. And is it then also for this? Yeah, it's also for this and also for this. And when I made this page, I thought, well, what also has what should have a bad IMP is the add to cart button, because sometimes it takes a while for adding a product to the cart. So I made it. I made a loader on it, like I always do, and but no IMP. So I thought, hey, why is it not why don't I get a bad IMP here? Well, when you just click it and then add a disable state on and a loading element, then it actually has a good IMP, because you are doing it exactly the right way.
Yeah. You're giving visual feedback to the user.
Exactly.
So something that I described about it as well. If you have a category page with infinity scroll, so scrolling through the category page, and then when you reach the bottom, it's going to load products automatically, or there's this load more button. So if you reach the end of the page and press load more, it takes a while to get the product data and visualize them. So what you then can do is, instead of making it load more, you can change the text to loading. This is then a good IMP, because the visual feedback happens. And I would say this is acceptable because you're telling the user what you're actually doing on the background. So a small meme when IMP got released was to introduce a lot of spinners for everything. So after every click, you just introduce a spinner, even with a radio button. Introduce a spinner in the radio button. That would fix IMP as a metric, but in the end, you are just fooling yourself by doing this cheesy tactic. So Wouter has a solution for this poor IMP.
This is
at least I hope.
We don't have to cover this one, because it's I just delay the accordion, so it's
so for real use, I would say watch my Mage Titus talk back. No, you have a performance track, and then you have some whiskers. I will share this as well in the mail I sent afterwards. And thank you, Wouter, but something that's really cool for accordions is to use invoker commands. a friend of mine, Ryan, also a web performance specialist, built Wolsey.com. And if you go to Wolsey.com, and I send it in the chat, and then their product page, you can see that their drop down or their accordion is using summary, so details summary. So back in the day, and correct me if I'm wrong, you could only open or close accordion with CSS. One you could do, the other you could not do. So I'm not sharing my screen, but even if you have the product page of Wolsey disabled JavaScript, you can.
It still works.
It still works.
Okay, nice.
So invoker commands is something that's being slept on, maybe even, but you can use this for stuff like that. And Sean, as the front-end wizard at Huva, let me know if you knew about invoker commands and the use case, or other people. I'm also curious if you've already seen this, but this is actually a great one.
Yeah, nice. All right. Let's do a CLS issue. I think we should do one CLS issue and then go to the back forward cache and the speculation rules and then wrap it up.
Yeah,
time.
I told you it's going to take longer than you expect.
Yeah.
But the drop-off rate is only 3 people dropped off, so that's my cue that it's actually interesting what we're talking about.
Okay.
If more and more people are dropping off, maybe 12 people start having lunches. Have lunch while you're watching us, guys.
Okay, CLS issues. Several CLS issues. I don't actually remember what I did here, but let's just record and reload and see for ourselves.
Maybe below the fault? Or you magically fixed it already?
Oh.
Good boy.
Layout sheet. Here. Oh, I see it. Okay.
Wait, how did you see it? Maybe I missed it.
Again, a CLS issue. Go to the performance tab. Hit the record and reload button. That's this one, the arrow, round arrow thingy. And then it reloads the page. You have to stop recording because then you can then it processes the data. And then you have an
the
data
purple
like
line.
this, and here you have a layout shift and a purple line. And here you have to look for the diamonds. That's how you call it, right?
Yeah, I think so. At least that's what I call it.
Yeah, that's what you call it, yes. So, what is then? Here, yeah. Then I flow a little bit over the images, and here you can see exactly the layout shift.
Wait, what is happening? The logo is getting...
No, it's the menu.
Check. So when you're hovering over it,
there's a menu item added, and the optimizations menu submenu is showing.
Okay.
And it should not. Okay. Let's go to the code.
Several. Yeah, CLS happens so fast, even the smallest layout shifts are being counted. So click open.
Yeah, so this should not be the I see here the menu item. This is the div for the CLS issues, and it has a xcloak attribute that should not be there because the xcloak should be on the submenu, right? And here,
What's the initial? Xcloak sharing. Oh. Okay, let's see.
oh, that was it, I think.
Yeah.
Good. Again. Performance.
Performance. Yes.
Reload. Oh, I always forget to press stop.
There's no CLS track anymore.
No, so yeah, it's fixed. Oh.
So this is pretty much saying that if even one tiny mistake that's not really styling, although cloak is styling, but can mess up your CLS.
Yeah, and Xcloak is I don't know exactly how to describe that, but
I googled it. Sometimes when you're using
It's
Alpine for a part of your template, there's a blip where you might see your uninitialized template after the page loads, but before Alpine loads.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so then you hide it, and I think when you add attribute on the element, then you have a piece of CSS that just display nonsense. So,
Simple as that.
Yeah.
So double check your code.
Yeah. All right.
Maybe we can do one more.
Yeah, one more. I think the speculation rules is a
nice.
very good topic to discuss.
Yep. Is anybody in the chat using speculation rules? I think a lot of people are using it. A lot of people that start with room vision are not, so that's always where I can score some points by introducing them to speculation rules. But yeah, I think a lot of people are familiar names in this chat where I know they use speculation rules. Roland, Hazelager, Handsome Boy, Carlijn as well, Irina from Custom Gento, Roland from Taurus Media, Smart Companies, Thomas Drabik is also using it. Nice. Edwin Bos from Cream. So a lot of agencies are doing this for the clients. Yeah, obviously
Nice.
Algentos is as well.
But
Awesome.
I use Brave as a browser, and it does not support speculation rules. And you
Then
can
don't
also
use
not
Brave.
not debug it.
Oh, really?
No,
Okay.
because yeah, I'll show you.
The Brave is also Chromium based, but then it's just some versions behind.
This is my Brave dev tool, and when you go to application and then background services, then Chrome has here a topic speculation rules. Oh, hey, it's new.
Maybe they updated the Chromium engine.
Today then. Holy shit.
Coincidence.
What? Okay.
No.
Cool.
You can keep using Brace.
Nice. Awesome.
Wouter's day is
Finally.
made, guys.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to use Google Chrome ever again.
Well, here you can debug your speculation rules. Speculation rules, the idea is that you preload the page that you are maybe going to visit, hence the speculation. And the rules, yeah, you can debug here. So this is the speculation, not triggered. Yeah, and then when you now I'm in responsive mode, it's not working. I think it's not working very well. Yeah, you can really see what happens, but when you are in the dev mode, it does not work.
Yeah, what you often can do is when you are on a site where speculation rules are, I often go to the network panel. And
yeah, that you can also do. Yeah.
Then yeah, fucking hell, our company logo is in the way. But if you hover over a link now, at least, can you reload real quick? And then hover over width and height or something like that. Okay, it's probably just not working at
no,
the moment.
it's because it's on localhost.
Ah.
I think something is
Yeah, but in the
something's up
end,
there.
it's sort of like instant.page, but better and in the browser again, so you don't have to use another library or something for
Native
this.
browser support.
Yeah, so it's only Chrome. Wait, can I use? Always helpful. Speculation rules.
Probably not Safari.
No, Edge and Chrome. But also big news: Safari is implementing LCP soon now,
Okay.
and Firefox got IMP this week.
Okay.
So other browsers are also following Chrome with performance-related topics like speculation rules, or at least core vital support. Speculation rules should follow soon, if you would ask me. But yeah, in terms, we are now at an hour, so I think we will wrap it up with some questions.
Wrap it up.
And if you have some performance tips, obviously there are 100 other tips, but what would be your go-to tip that you give when you're auditing someone's web performance? And we are now big again. Nice background, right?
Yeah, awesome.
You forgot your El Gentle thingy.
Ah, damn it, our frame. Yeah.
Yep. Give it a like on Interop if you want more support. So maybe Carlijn, share the URL.
Vinay said that it's in Brave for a few months now. Okay,
So Wouter didn't update his browser for a few months.
That's possible.
Yeah, so what Carlijn is saying in the chat, Interop is happening, and there you can say what web features you want in other browsers. So we as a community do have more say in this than you would think. So upvoting something that's Carline's going to look up, can't find the link, BRB. Wait, Interop 2020. Wait, we need thumbs up because then we have nice things in the browser that can help you out as well. Oh, here it is. Web performance proposals. So here we go. Pasting it. It's a link to RumVision, but in this RumVision article, you can see some. Yeah, it has links to places where you can vote up. So speculation rules is also in there. So it links to GitHub issues 1081, blah, blah, blah. It has 35 thumbs up. The more thumbs up, the bigger the chances are that they are implementing it. Although it's more political than you would guess, but voting up shows how much we as a community would love to have this feature. I don't think. Vinay is be aware pre-render can mess with tracking. Prefetch can be better there. I agree, but there are some fallbacks to pre-render and tracking. So I would say implement fallbacks and still use pre-render, because for one of our clients, 40% of the desktop traffic is pre-rendered, and therefore their LCP is 300-400 milliseconds, and they are B2B. So are there questions in the chat or any projects you would like to share that are web performance related?
Well, it's a Groningen question.
Yeah, Groningen questions. Good neighborhoods to buy a house in. What is a reasonable time to first byte for an uncached and a cached page for Magento shop? I would say cached 300 to 500 milliseconds. Uncached, I would be happy with 1 to 1.5 seconds, but this is what I'm seeing.
What on average, I think that is it.
Yeah.
I think we have to aim for uncached 600 to 800.
Yeah.
That should be the aim, I think.
Yep, that would be a good one. But
and cached can when you cache it with varnish, it can be 200 milliseconds, but it can be 100 milliseconds.
Yeah. Speculation rules fallback, Thomas. I swear there was a blog about this from Google, but I never can find it again. Analytics. I'm looking it up for you. perhaps based on analytics. Analytic ads. You usually don't blah 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 until pay. Okay. I'm yapping. Sites. There's this one, but I don't think it covers it fully. So also included in the email I sent afterwards. There is an article by Barry Pollard from Google that says something about this, but I'm not sure now. Other questions? Otherwise, I think we're going to thank you for joining. There's still 34 people now, so a lot of people are liking it, I would say, hopefully. So
thanks for joining.
Yeah,
it was
nice.
awesome. Fun times. I thought we were done in 30 minutes, 15 minutes maybe.
Yep.
But took us an hour.
Yep.
Sorry about that. Maybe then.
Yeah, 1 hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, there's 2 requests for a next episode
What?
already. So
nice.
If you,
Thank you, Eduard.
thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you for joining. And if you have questions, wouter@elgentos.nl or jordi@rumvision.nl. Kom. Too fast, too curious. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome.
And,
see you
enjoy
later.
your lunch.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And